we'll take it down a bit. We're gonna get a little bit mellow. We're gonna get into a bit of a deep and meaningful chat. And as the name suggests, I'm gonna talk you through what I like and what I not so much like about the Sim. Probably first and foremost would have to be personal achievement. When I set out to do this, I initially had the desktop sim and everything, and I had this vision that I wanted to create something that I could just be immersed in. And I knew that it was going to be a challenge. I knew that I wanted to have the wraparounds, the fully integrated cockpit and all of it, but I just didn't really know where to start, and I certainly didn't have the money to go and buy one of these pre-built cockpits, you know, that you can buy for thousands and thousands of dollars. So went back to the drawing board and spent so much time in design and everything else, and ultimately got here. And when people ask me why do you do what you do, as I said, and I always say this, there's two aspects to it. The first and foremost was, could I actually do this? Could I actually build this thing and design it and do everything from scratch? And I hopefully you would agree that I've ticked that box. And then secondly was then the enjoyment of flying and learning about navigation and systems and procedures and all of that stuff. So that's obviously probably more of the part that I'm into now, although I am still tinkering. So personal achievement, first and foremost, one of the biggest things that I like about the Sim. It took me a long time to get to where I am today, but I'm so proud of, and I'm not trying to, actually, no, I am trying to blow smoke up myself. But I am actually quite proud. And look, it's not the best out there, but, you know, I am quite impressed with it. So certainly that is one. I'd have to say, look, the feeling of immersion is really good I think so, in this sim. Look, I don't have motion in here. It is sitting on I wouldn't say a floating platform, but it is sitting raised off the floor, so I can get the side monitor freestands legs underneath. But it's not on motion, and I don't think I'll ever do that, to be brutally honest. It does have a butt kicker through the floor though, so I do get the transducer coming through the floor and vibrations, particularly if I land hard or taxiing along, or get a bit of turbulence in the air. I can get that through the butt kicker, which is really good. But more importantly, I've got the whole everything's touch and feel, and that's the reason I had the separate operator station. I wanted to come into the aircraft every single time, cold and dark. Once I've set the scenario up off the operator station, and not have a mouse and keyboard in here. Treat this as if it was coming into an aircraft, and that was one of my other pieces of criteria. And again, really happy that I managed to get that in as well. So certainly immersion. The other aspects of the reel is that for the immersion is, I've got a physical frame here. And this is not mandatory, but one of the things that I like to be able to do if I'm coming around is, actually look forward and look in front of this post, because the screen actually goes all the way through, and even sometimes look behind, a little bit like that. I can duck in, and even here when I can look behind, because the screen does go behind the rear, and I can look just a little bit down through there as well. So, as you would, I guess, in a real aircraft, you'd look around. I get to do that as well, and that adds to it as well. So overall immersion certainly is what I like, and just having this permanent side views here as I'm flying along and being able to see things out of the peripheral vision, really, really good. I'd have to say tinkering and testing. Even though I've got this built, as you've seen from the recent videos, I'm still tinkering and testing, upgrading, and I think that'll always happen. There's always things that you can find to do with it as you build and as you get a bit more money to put into the hobby. Obviously, recently I've upgraded all of the screens. I'll be looking to do a bit more PC upgrades over time. I think I've mentioned before that I would like to get these one day to be true force feedback and self-centering. But all these things that I can do, a motorized trim wheel. There's so many different things that I could do to continue to tinker with it, and I enjoy that part of it. I do enjoy just tinkering, and spending a bit of time just, on my mellow little way with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or whatever, and tinker away. So I do enjoy that. The touch and feel, and this is like a little bit controversial. I know you get this versus VR, and I totally get it. I don't have a VR headset, but I have tried VR, and absolutely so much more immersive in terms of the way that your brain is tricked into thinking that you're actually where in real time, in real life, in 3D space. You just get that depth perception much better in VR. So I get all that. I understand all that, and it is certainly good. In fact, one day I may even look to do VR as well as this. But even though I've tried VR and I do like it, don't get me wrong, I just like to be able to touch stuff, physically turn the knobs and everything else, and and just be able to switch things on and chuck the flaps lever and the trim wheel and everything. I just want to be able to just do stuff, and that's what I enjoy. Yeah, I just like to be able to do that and physically have the physical touch side of it. So yeah, that's probably another big like for this simulator, being so interactive in that regard. Look, I certainly think one of the other things, and it does make me proud, is I have friends and family that come over from time to time, and certainly, well, my family's now seen the simulator. I think I've explained it to you guys before that it's parked upstairs and it occupies a room on its own. We call it the Sim Room, and have done for the last few years. When people come over who haven't seen it before, and I say, "Oh, I've got a simulator upstairs," and most times, 9 times out of 10, people assume that it's going to be a screen in front of a computer on a desk. And when they walk into the room, I look at their face straight away, and they just go, "Whoa." They're not expecting this, and sometimes, I'll actually have like a scene like this already preloaded in, ready to go, and so as they walk in, obviously just behind the camera where you guys are there, they see this and they just get blown away. Yeah, that part of it I do enjoy. It's that wow factor, and I guess for me that gives me some satisfaction that the sim must look pretty good for what it is. And as I said, it's all about what's inside, because as you've seen from the outside, it is not flash, and it was never designed to be. But once you're inside it, you do feel like you're part of it. There are quite a few things that I'd like to change if I could, and some of them I can't, and some of them, I can, and I'll have a think about how I may do that in the future. Some of them are just inconveniences. One in particular is having the separate operator station is great in terms of being able to set up the scenario, set up whatever you want, do all that stuff offline, and then come into an aircraft cold and dark, as I mentioned in the likes. But the disadvantage of that is exactly that, you know, and particularly if I'm swapping and changing and everything else, I've got to get out of here, go over to the operation station, come back, and it's constantly going in and out, in and out. You don't see any of that because most of the time you've got these edited videos and all you see is the flying action. But jumping in and out of you know, for the operator station can be a bit tedious from time to time, and you know, I keep getting up, and because this is physical one-to-one or very close to it, it's tight and cramped, you know, so I'm coming in and out. It's a bit annoying, but yeah, that's one. The screens, whilst they're great, and 55s I'm a big fan of, because we've got the physical cockpit shell, and because we've got the physical glare shield and cockpit, which takes up, you know, a fair bit of this screen, at least, you know, a third, if not getting close to half of this screen here, probably not quite half, but it's not far off, you know, just over a third. You know, if you've got any, you know, if you have got some stuff up on here and you've got Windows, for example, comes up in the bottom left, I can't get to it. I can't get to it down here either. It's so annoying. And even if stuff's up high, you know, if I've got accidentally something happens to get up high on the screen, up in there, I just can't see it. You know, the gap between this frame and that screen is probably about 30 to 40 millimeters on both. So that, whilst it looks good when it is working, if I've got something where I need to, you know, make an adjustment and all of a sudden this comes up here and I can't do it from the operator station, and that has happened in the past, that's annoying. And I've had that happen on numerous occasions, and that can be quite frustrating. As the channel would suggest, the channel is called Sim. And that is giving obviously tribute to the Cessna Skyhawk G1000 172, which is what we have here. And it's great because that's what I wanted to do. But it is restrictive. You know, I can't just all of a sudden fly an airliner with this setup. You know, I'm sure I could have the basics and still make it work, but it just wouldn't look right. So I am restricted now in relation to this, you know, so I could probably do a few other different types of aircraft, but fundamentally I am a little bit more restricted because I have set all the dimensions and stuff out of this to get very close to the 172. So being a bit restrictive when you build a physical cockpit panel and everything to a specific aircraft is obviously a bit of a drawback. I love the fact that I've got the dual yokes. It was again one of those things that I want to be able to do so that one, for I guess for immersion and showing people that, you know, you've got these dual yokes working. Two, if I have someone here that they can also be flying actively as well. And so on, and that's, you know, and I'm really happy with how they look and how it actually works, and functionally they work fine, with the exception of a couple of things. You would have seen the very crude setup that I've got at the back there, which is just simply on some draw sliders on a common frame with a mechanical linkage, but in terms of I guess back pressure and so on, that's just on bands. And it's not self-centering, and so what I've had to do is mark the yoke shaft at the center point there where I get it, and just check that when I'm flying to say that that is the center point, and then adjust the trim to suit, and so I don't feel that back pressure, you know, which you would typically want to do, and then trim that out. That's not what I get, so that's a bit annoying. And that's something that I can fix, but I need to work on how I'm going to do that over time. So look, it certainly feels okay when I'm drawing back and forth and roll and pitch, all that's fine, but it doesn't self-center, and I don't because of that, and I don't get that sort of back pressure feel and so on as what I would like, and as you would generally get in a proper force feedback yoke. So that's another drawback. You can't probably see it very well, but the seats is a drawback. I just have it. This is just an office chair, and next to me is just a little round little shelf type unit, which is I can just move in and out, which I've got at the moment. I've got a Stream Deck sitting on it and a notepad and a couple of pens, which I use. That's all off camera. That's it. But just an office chair, so it's not really piloty type seats. I actually have to have it like this, I guess, because of the screens and everything. I have to go out of the sim from the back. I can't do it from the sides, as much as I'd love to be able to open up doors. Obviously, with the two big TVs either side, I can't do that. So an office chair is good. It's okay. It does start to get a bit uncomfortable when you've been in the air a good, if I'm 2 hours, if I have a longer flight, that can get a little bit sore on the old bottom. Anyway, yeah, seats, I'd like to be able to upgrade that, and maybe I can get a bit more of a comfortable office chair or something, but yeah, unfortunately I don't get those authentic looking pilot seats, which I would like to have done. Probably one of the other dislikes is the money that I've spent. I'm not going to say that here, but it's been a fair bit over the years. Put it this way, it's well, you can do the math yourself, but it's up there. I'm happy to take some guesses in the comments below. But it's cost me a fair bit over time. But again, that's been progressive over the last 3.5, getting close to 4 years now since this project actually started. But probably one of the dislikes is when I look at, geez, how much I've actually sunk into this hobby. It's been fairly expensive. But I could say, well, I don't have any big fancy car or boats and any of that. So if this is my luxury toy, so be it. Whilst it's a like in terms of the tinkering, it's also a dislike because sometimes something's just not working, and I just spend hours and hours trying to work out, how to fix it or whatever it might be. Case in point, as you would have seen the other day, views, like aligning views, getting bezel correction right, getting this cowling right. Now, it's just time consuming. That was one. I've had many a time where I've had to, particularly in the older days, where I've had to, this throttle and mixture panel here was done, I think, 4 times because I just couldn't get it to work right. And then I had to, every single time inside of here, it's not friction controlled, but the hub, or if you like, the little, or what do you call it? I guess a little hub that this thing sits inside. I had to 3D print that and was progressively moving it in by 0.2 of a millimeter, 0.1 of a millimeter, just so I could get the right amount of, I guess, friction on those to make them so they're not completely loose, but they're not too tight. That was there. These steam gauges here were all done from scratch. They took time and effort and multiple goes at some of them. So yeah, quite time consuming. I've had software, with the Leo Bodner boards go down on me. I've had the Arduino boards fail, servos fail. Like if a servo fails in here, all of this has got to come out, which means I've got to get into the panel behind, and it's like a car mechanic. It can be quite frustrating. When it's working, it's great, and most of the time it is. I'd say 95% of the time it is, but some things, as expected, they do fail from time to time. Yeah, but tinkering's probably one of the things that, whilst I love it, when it's stuff that I want to do. I don't love it when it's stuff that I'm either got to fix or repair or something's gone wrong. Well, there you have it. That's a bit of a show and tell of what I like and what I don't like as much, or the drawbacks, if you like, of the simulator, and hopefully you got a little bit out of that. It's overall, it's still a fantastic hobby. I haven't met many people personally, but I've certainly met a lot of people over this journey, over the YouTube channel and everything. And again, just want to point out, I've taken so much over the years from many of either yourselves that are tuned in or others, and I thank everyone for that. And hopefully with what I'm doing now, I'm giving a little bit back with some of my trials and tribulations. But anyway, hopefully if you enjoyed this one, leave a like below. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. This sort of content comes out quite regularly, and onwards and upwards. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch up with you next time. All right, bye for now. Well, good day, everyone. Hope you're well, and thanks for tuning in. Oh, there's a guy over there. Never noticed that before. That's irrelevant for this